Hey there! Welcome to SkyGems Academy podcast. At SkyGems Academy, our vision is to build a community of new generation leaders with strong core values, high level of self-awareness, high self-worth, and passionate individuals who will give back to the community and the environment. We are focused on delivering high-quality blended online learning of 21st century life skills delivered and taught online, practiced and perfected offline. Our philosophy is to inspire, educate, and nurture. We work towards inspiring and igniting sparks. We listen, we coach, we fine-tune and accelerate the mastery of 21st century life skills for various age groups. Our blended learning programs are curated from the early years to above 60 years old, as we believe in providing high-quality, lifelong learning for everyone. SkyGems Academy Podcast Series 1: How COVID-19 Transformed the Education Industry. We will take you inside the minds and behind the scenes of 40 exclusive leaders and educators in the education industry. We've interviewed 40 exclusive educators and leaders in the education industry worldwide, starting with China, where the pandemic initially started. You will hear from the leaders in the education industry sharing candidly their views on the possible changes that will take place in the education industry post-COVID-19. Be sure to tune in to SkyGems Academy Podcast Series 1 to listen and learn from the amazing stories, experiences shared, challenges faced, and techniques used by educators in different cities and countries to adapt and overcome their challenges personally as well as professionally in their respective roles in the education industry during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, let's dive into SkyGems Academy Podcast Series 1. Introducing to you our host, Alyssa.
Hey guys, it's Alyssa. Hope everyone is keeping well. SkyGems Academy Podcast is a passion project that my team and I kicked off in early 2020. As we are all facing the unprecedented events and experiences impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, we find that there is an urgent need to unite the global community of educators and leaders to progress forward together. Our main objective is to create a platform for all global leaders and global communities to come together to document these historic moments for our future generations. SkyGems Academy Podcast is a platform for everyone from all around the world to share, listen, learn, communicate, collaborate, and come together to network and help one another to pull through this very challenging period that has impacted the global community. In each episode of SkyGems Academy Podcast Series 1, How COVID-19 Transformed the Education Industry, you will find yourself immersed and engaged in in-depth discussions and thought leadership in various aspects of education, technology, humanity, diversity, disparity, and collaborations in the education space. We are very grateful and sincerely appreciate each and every one of you who has motivated us, encouraged us, contributed in your own very special ways, especially our 40 exclusive guest speakers from all around the world. A big thank you to all and a big shout out to all of you. SkyGems Academy Podcast 26th speaker is Chris Bradbury. Chris is the principal of North Holme Grammar School, an independent co-educational school. He is based in Sydney, Australia. Chris has a genuine commitment and passion for the growth of young people to achieve their personal best through life-wide learning. Chris has been awarded a New South Wales Quality Teaching Excellence Award in recognition of outstanding teaching practice by the New South Wales State Government and was a recipient of both the Gandel Holocaust Studies Program for Australian Educators Scholarship and the New South Wales Premier's Westfields Histories Teachers Scholarship. In 2018, he has been selected to participate in the New South Wales AIS Leadership Center flagship program, which is a rigorous, holistic program for experienced school leaders in schools. He holds a bachelor and master's degree in education from the University of Sydney and a graduate certificate in advanced educational leadership from Harvard University. COVID-19 has been a pivotal learning point for the 21st century skills dispositions. We need to continue to be deliberate, intentional in making them a reality so that our students have the capacity to deal with all those challenges when they leave school and beyond, said Chris. Now, I am pleased to introduce you to and present to you to Chris Bradbury.
Today, we have the luxury, privilege, and honor of having Mr. Chris Bradbury all the way from Sydney, Australia. A very warm welcome to you, Chris. Welcome to SkyGems Podcast.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for being part of our podcast episode for today. And I would like you to share and also introduce yourself to the listeners. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you. I'm the principal of North Home Grammar School, which is an independent school, co-educational in Northwest Sydney. Our key values are learning through scholarship, caring for others and self, living a faithful life, and contributing to the community. And we very much believe in a well-rounded education that fosters both academic excellence as well as the development of citizenship and character. I've been very fortunate to be a teacher for 20 years. I've had previous experience at Helston Agricultural High School as well as the King School in Parramatta, and my curriculum areas are legal studies and modern history. And I still have the pleasure of teaching legal studies as well. So it's great to be in the classroom as well as take on the role as an educational leader. I certainly enjoy my role as a principal. I have a real passion for education and for teaching and learning. And I think it's been an incredible experience over the last few months leading a school community through the pandemic of COVID-19. I think it's been an incredible learning experience for everyone involved. And I've certainly enjoyed working with our community, our students, our staff and our parents in terms of navigating through these challenges and developing our core business of a vibrant learning culture and community.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for sharing and also giving an introduction of yourself. Very, very impressive indeed. We'd like to now go straight to the episode discussion. And I think you hit it on a nail when you talk about the challenges that we all faced for the past few months with the pandemic that hit us all so suddenly. And we have to react and adapt very, very quickly as well. I'd like to ask you, Chris, to share your feelings about the COVID-19 pandemic that has hit us recently. Would you be able to share with us?
I certainly can. I think the current COVID-19 pandemic situation has been incredibly challenging for everyone. And I think in terms of leading a school, you get to see the impact of those challenges on a number of levels. First and foremost, from an education sphere, and how learning has needed to be modified and reformed and altered to cater for the new environment. And as an educational leader, I've also observed the challenges and the impact that the pandemic has had on families and relationships. And this comes with much complexity. From an Australian perspective, we've been fortunate, I think, in comparison to many other nations, in that there's been significant movement in getting back to normality, or as close to normality as we can find. But we did have to move very quickly during term one in moving from face-to-face learning to remote learning, and that took place for some weeks. However, the improvements were quite swift, which meant that we were then able to return to face-to-face learning through a transition program. And for the last few weeks, we've currently had all our students in schools. So whilst it has been a challenging experience and will continue to be challenging, I do think that there are a number of benefits that have emanated from this experience. And I think individuals have grown in terms of their resilience and their capability of handling and tackling adversity. And I think that it has certainly made educational communities more conscious of maintaining a very strong balance in both the education we deliver as well as looking after student well-being. During this time, but in general within an educational context.
Yeah, that's certainly really a situation that we're all in, and well-rounded in terms of your sharing of your feelings there, Chris. Thank you for sharing. In terms of crisis, definitely we face challenges. Would you be able to share some of the challenges that you faced during this period of time?
I think there's been a number of challenges, and the most obvious one is the learning environment and the change from face-to-face teaching and learning to remote learning. In terms of reflecting how we were successful in that, or the degree of success, I think one benefit was that we naturally didn't have any time to assess the situation or to contemplate what we needed to do. We simply needed to act, and we needed to act quickly. So there weren't any alternatives other than to transform the learning experience. So I think the initial challenge was ensuring that our community was comfortable and confident that the education that we could provide remotely was at the same level as the education that we would deliver face-to-face. And that meant that we needed to develop our technological resources and our infrastructure to be able to cater for that. The challenges, however, were that a number of students had to work more independently than they normally would. So although they had the contact and the guidance from their teachers through Zoom lessons and email access, they nonetheless didn't have the face-to-face contact. So there was a difference in terms of the building of relationships. And I think there were some students that were able to handle that exceptionally well, whereas there were other students that were challenged by that. And as a school, we obviously needed to navigate through those difficulties to assist students in that domain. One of the big challenges was firstly making sure that we had quality teaching and learning happening technologically, and our staff were amazing and brilliant in terms of working collaboratively and together in building on the skills that they already had in this domain. But there was also a real sense of enthusiasm and keenness to develop those skills. So whilst that was challenging at the time to develop the platforms, to develop the sense of intensity that the learning environment has under those technological constraints, our staff certainly embraced the opportunity for professional development and for growth. The challenge, however, for students was in regards to the internet access that they had. So I think it was very clear this is not just a national challenge, but I think an international challenge, that there were great discrepancies in terms of the internet coverage that students had. And if they didn't have strong internet connection, obviously that was going to pose problems through the learning experience. I think another challenge was continually engaging with the community to ensure that we were there to support them. And that support was emotional and also financial. And I think as a community, we proved to be incredibly empathetic in understanding the difficulties and plights that families had. Obviously, there are a number of people during this period that have lost their jobs or had been stood down. So the financial pressures at home obviously extend to the educational sphere. And we certainly made a point as a community to make sure that we were supporting our members emotionally as well as financially during this time. And in a time of uncertainty, we wanted to ensure that we met the challenge of providing certainty in the quality of our education. The final challenge I would just share is continually working closely with staff and being empathetic to their needs, and in understanding that they were enormously challenged in regards to time and the demands of a new form of teaching, and also needing to be agile and adaptable from moving from face-to-face to remote back to face-to-face. So ensuring that as the leader of the school, I was present, that my influence was positive, and that I was able to demonstrate the level of resilience that we were all displaying as a community.
Yeah, those challenges that you just shared and the changes that you make to adapt and how you overcome that really takes a lot of effort and also initiative across the whole organization and the community, right, to make it happen for all in a very short period of time. So those are really valuable lessons that you have shared with us that we all can learn from what you have gone through. Thank you for sharing that, Chris. Chris, through
Oh, thank
those
you.
challenges and also the changes, the agility that your team had in overcoming those challenges, what are the key lessons that was learned, and would you be able to share with us on the key lessons learned?
Certainly, with pleasure. One of the biggest lessons was ultimately the importance of communication. And I actually feel during this period that we have grown and matured as an educational organisation. And I think crisis demands that. A crisis demands that leaders and teachers are able to step up to the challenges. And one of those areas is to ensure that there is strong communication that is consistent, that is coherent, and that provides clarity for our community. So we were constantly communicating with the community in terms of what the current status was, how we were looking to proceed, the changes that we were making, most importantly, ensuring and communicating to our community that we were conscious of the work health and safety measures that needed to be implemented, so that student staff wellbeing was being looked after, and at the same time we were conscious of creating a learning environment that was safe and secure for all members of our community. We also made a point of putting health as a priority before wealth. So whilst attendance and maximum effort and enthusiasm are the givens that we want in an educational context, we wanted to ensure that our students, our staff and our parents were strong mentally as well as physically in terms of meeting the demands during this particular time. We learnt the value of positivity and optimism, and the need to be creative. So one of the great discoveries during this period is that the obvious changes that we needed to make in terms of parent-teacher interviews or information nights, sporting events needing to be modified or cancelled, has actually allowed us to be creative, and a number of those ideas that we developed by doing those through video recordings and technology interactive exercises are discoveries that many of them we will keep, even returning to face-to-face learning, and the period has therefore presented new opportunities for us to explore. I think just finally, the reinforcement, I think, of empathy and being pastoral during this period, and the need to build a strong emergency management team. So I've really enjoyed the development of the relationships that I have with key senior leadership, as well as our teaching staff and our parents, and constantly seeking their feedback in terms of the level of communication and information we're providing to ensure that there's clarity and confidence within our community.
Well, thank you for sharing that level of detail of lessons learned, Chris. I really like the way that you handled the whole crisis. Instead of taking it very hard, but you look at it very positively in terms of how to have actually opportunities coming out of this crisis in a lot of aspects, from your managing of your team and also your community, putting health over wealth. I think that is gold. That is really much applauded for. Thank you for that, Chris. Putting empathy and pastoral as priority during this period. Definitely, I think that is a very big thing that we need to do to help one another to pull through this very challenging time. So really salute you for all that efforts and also all that leadership that you have done throughout this period. Thank you, Chris.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Chris, the education industry before COVID-19 has been there about the same for many centuries. And with COVID-19, we all have to suddenly transform ourselves and make changes to adapt. How do you think COVID-19 has changed the industry? And also, what are your views in terms of education industry post-COVID-19?
There's been quite a lot of debate and discussion in regards to how COVID-19 will transform education.
Yes.
I think that there's two significant outcomes of this experience and the continuing experience, because we haven't finished yet. And that is that I think this period has identified the value of blended learning. I think that the challenges posed by COVID-19 has forced and allowed schools to engage in the effectiveness of technology and the ability for us to be able to communicate and to link with members of the community, both locally and globally. I love the fact that teachers are now more open to utilising the expertise of others at a national and global level through Zoom meetings and bringing experts into the classroom. Because this experience has challenged us in this area. I think that there's great benefit in terms of how we can distribute information, how we can teach students by creating videos and podcasts and other means by which education can be served, which many teachers would not have engaged in, other than the fact that this particular challenge has allowed us to do so. But I think the second area is that the challenges of COVID-19, I think, have reinforced in the most emphatic ways imaginable what is important and valuable within our current educational system. And that is connection, relationships, and community. So I think the great lesson for the education industry post-COVID-19 is that we've built greater confidence in the application of technology and the opportunities of what technology provides for us and the development of learning outcomes for our students. And we want to continue to build and maximise those advantages. But at the same time, the school environment is incredibly important to build community, those powerful relationships between teachers and students and teachers and parents. We don't want to lose that. And it's great to be face-to-face and to still have that. And also the sense of connection, because one thing that was obviously lost during this period was that sense of connectedness between teacher and student. And I think we were fortunate in our experiences that it was long enough for us to be able to see the advantages and to also see the disadvantages, but to be able to bring that sense of connection and relationships back as a community once we were able to return to school. So I like the balance. I'm not one to advocate that the traditional system of education needs to be thrown out and we need to move to something completely different. I have a more balanced view on the fact of, I think there's some really strong traditional aspects of education that we should never lose and we need to continue to cherish and preserve. But the COVID-19 pandemic has certainly opened our eyes to a number of opportunities and possibilities in regards to blended learning and further connection from a technological point of view.
That is very well said there, and I believe in that you have mentioned in terms of the blended learning. That will be the way forward. It's just how we're going to leverage that and make it better for all the community. And also the three things that you talk about, it has highlighted the values of connection, relationship, and community, and that's really true. Well, thank you for sharing that level of detail, Chris. Really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Well, Chris, now we're going through different phases of COVID-19 in different countries. What would your new normal be if you are not already in your new normal? What is your new normal?
I think it ties in with that point that I made previously in terms of the balance of the educational delivery that we provide. I think we're going to be benefited in terms of our connections globally. I think that the new normal is greater confidence in terms of professional development and professional growth in utilising technology, both in the classroom but also creating opportunities for access outside. And I think that the connections will build on a global level. And I also think that schools will continue to build on that sense of creativity that they've developed during this time in thinking outside the box in terms of how they can do things. And I think that we're going to be better positioned to maximise both teacher time as well as parent time in delivering information. So being able to find that balance between when we need to have physical events and the significance of those physical events at school, but at the same time, how we can then deliver both learning, but also connection and community virtually. And I think we've been able to see that in terms of our communication and our messaging. And I know from our perspective, we've utilised this period to develop our infrastructure in terms of communicating more regularly to parents via video, and also in setting up a podcast series, which we'll do in the next few months as a means of being able to communicate the teaching and learning environment that we live and breathe day in and day out at North Home Grammar.
That's wonderful, Chris. Thank you for sharing that. That's a great new normal that you are going through. Thank you. Chris, now we come through to to the very important part of the podcast episode. We would like to know your messages for the future generation. Would you be able to share with us?
I think we talk a lot about the 21st century skills and dispositions that students need to be successful when they leave school. We talk about dispositions such as resilience, communication, critical thinking, problem solving. And I think that the challenges that COVID-19 has posed has clearly indicated the incredible value of those particular dispositions, which means that education and schools must continue to be deliberate and intentional in how they are developing resilience across our students from kindergarten to year 12, and how we are challenging our students to be adaptable and agile, because through this crisis, that is what educational leaders, teachers, and many others in a variety of occupations have needed. They've needed to be agile and flexible in terms of navigating through the difficulties of the situation, adapting to the difficulties, being positive and optimistic in regards to how they handle those challenges. And as a result, that has allowed them to get through in handling those difficulties. So for me, I think the crisis has been a pivotal learning point in that all those 21st century dispositions that we talk about and we encourage in developing in our schools, we need to continue to be deliberate and intentional in making them a reality so that our students have the capacity to deal with all those challenges when they leave school and beyond.
Well, thank you, Chris, for sharing that message to the future generations. That is incredible, and that is so true. Thank you, Chris. Thank you once again for your time. We really appreciate your time and sharing such valuable experiences that you have, and also your vision and also your wisdom throughout this podcast series. Thank you, Chris, for your time, and we look forward to meeting you once again, hopefully in Sydney, if not in Singapore, one day. Thank you, Chris. Really appreciate your time.
I look forward to that too, and it's been a pleasure to be involved. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Chris. You have a great day and a great lunch.
Thank you. I will, and have a wonderful day too.
Thank you, Chris.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode at SkyGems Academy Podcast Series 1 on the topic of how COVID-19 transformed the education industry. If you enjoyed today's episode and you love the vision and mission of SkyGems Academy, can you please help us to convince others to tune in to SkyGems Academy Podcast too? Please kindly subscribe to SkyGems Academy Podcast. Please also kindly leave a quick review and rate SkyGems Academy Podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor.fm, Breaker, and various SkyGems Academy's podcast channels. That would mean the world to us, so thank you so much for your support. Visit our website at www.skygemsacademy.com to find out more about our distinguished speakers and about SkyGems Academy. We appreciate you and your continuous support. Thank you for tuning in to SkyGems Academy Podcast. High five and peace out!